The late summer air of Syracuse, New York, carried a sticky warmth that August evening in 2006. The streets were quiet, lined with aging brick row houses and the faint scent of fresh-cut grass. For 17-year-old Olivia Harper, it was an ordinary Thursday, filled with the familiar rhythm of school chores and after-school plans. Her friends remembered her laugh echoing down the hallways of Central High, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders as she navigated the crowded corridors. She was bright, curious, and endlessly energetic, the kind of teenager who could make strangers smile just by walking past them. Olivia had stayed after school that day for debate club, her notebook filled with meticulously written notes for an upcoming regional competition. At 5:30 p.m., she left the building waving to her friend Marissa as they parted ways near the corner of Jefferson Street. Olivia's plan was simple: walk 2 blocks to her part-time job at the local bookstore, help stock the evening shelves, and then head home to her family's modest apartment on Eastwood Avenue. But she never made it. By 6:02 p.m., her mother, Karen Harper, called the bookstore sensing something was off. Olivia hadn't arrived. The employee on duty, 22-year-old Matthew Collins, confirmed no one matching her description had shown up. Panic began to rise as Karen walked the familiar route her daughter would have taken, scanning streets, alleyways, and the small parks sprinkled throughout the neighborhood. Olivia was gone. What followed became one of the most haunting disappearances in Syracuse's recent history. Neighbors reported seeing a dark SUV slowing near the corner around the time Olivia would have been walking. A few recalled hearing a muffled scream, though none could confirm exactly where it came from. Surveillance footage from a nearby convenience store caught a fleeting glimpse of a figure moving quickly along the street, but the image was too blurry to be identified. Within hours, police had mobilized a search party. Officers combed the nearby streets, alleyways, and vacant lots, while volunteers canvassed the neighborhood, flyers in hand. For days, helicopters circled overhead, shining spotlights on the urban grid, attempting to catch any hint of where Olivia might have gone. Her backpack, containing her wallet and a partially finished diary entry, was eventually found in a dumpster behind a convenience store 2 blocks from where she had disappeared. Nothing inside had been disturbed. There were no signs of a struggle, no immediate clues as to what had happened. Investigators initially focused on known offenders in the area, checking records, alibis, and any past interactions with Olivia or her friends. Leads came and went, each ending in frustration. By the end of September, the case had grown cold. Time passed, and the community's initial urgency transformed into a quiet, enduring grief. Olivia Harper was missing, and there were no answers. For 12 years, the case remained frozen in the minds of her family and the local police department. Karen Harper never stopped searching. Every year on August 17th, she walked the streets of her daughter's last known route, leaving flowers and photographs behind. She spoke at schools about safety and vigilance, hoping to prevent other families from enduring the same uncertainty. Meanwhile, Detective Daniel Price, who had been assigned to the case in 2006, never closed the file. He continued to collect information, track new technologies in forensic science, and check in with families of missing teens across the state, always holding on to hope that one day Olivia would be found. The breakthrough came in 2018, when the New York State Police implemented advanced DNA sequencing techniques capable of analyzing even decades-old degraded samples. Evidence collected in 2006, a partial skin cell sample on the strap of Olivia's abandoned backpack, and a hair found near the dumpster, was submitted for testing. Modern genetic genealogy, the same method that had recently brought closure to cold cases across the country, enabled investigators to compare the DNA against commercial databases, looking for distant relatives of potential suspects. By late 2019, the investigation had narrowed to one family living just outside Syracuse. Through meticulous work, including discreet collection of discarded items like coffee cups and soda cans, police obtained a DNA sample that would finally crack the case. The results were unmistakable. The genetic material from Olivia's backpack matched that of 42-year-old Gregory Ellis, a man who had lived in the neighborhood and worked as a delivery driver in 2006. The revelation stunned everyone who had known him. Ellis was not a stranger. He was familiar, unassuming, and had maintained a quiet presence in the community for years. Police conducted surveillance and gathered additional evidence. They reviewed his past interactions and found patterns that suggested a carefully constructed life, designed to avoid suspicion. Ellis had never been convicted of a violent crime, and his background appeared ordinary. Community service, local church involvement, and employment that kept him visible but unremarkable. The juxtaposition between the mild-mannered man neighbors knew and the suspect revealed by DNA underscored a chilling truth. Appearances can deceive, and evil can hide in plain sight. The arrest warrant was executed on February 4, 2020. Officers found Ellis at his residence, calmly reading in the living room. He was taken into custody without incident. During the search of his home, investigators discovered items linking him directly to the crime. Photographs, clothing fibers, and personal notes referencing Olivia's route and routine. It became clear that he had followed her, observing her habits, and had concealed his involvement for years. For Karen Harper, the news was both devastating and relieving. After 14 years of uncertainty, she finally had confirmation of what had happened to her daughter. Olivia's remains were recovered from a secluded location in a wooded area, consistent with Ellis's statements and forensic findings. While nothing could undo the loss, the family could finally begin the process of grieving with the knowledge of the truth. The case went to trial in September 2021. Prosecutors presented the DNA evidence, forensic analysis of fibers and personal items, and detailed testimony outlining Ellis's careful planning and subsequent deception. Defense attorneys attempted to challenge the integrity of the evidence, but the combination of preserved samples, modern forensic methods, and corroborating witness accounts made the prosecution's case overwhelming. After 3 weeks, the jury returned a verdict of guilty on all counts. Ellis was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The conviction marked the end of a 15-year search for answers. In Syracuse, the community reflected on the enduring impact of Olivia Harper's disappearance and the relentless pursuit of justice. Scholarships and public safety initiatives were established in her name, ensuring her legacy would continue to influence future generations. Her story became a symbol of the power of perseverance, modern forensic science, and the unwavering determination of a family who refused to forget. Through the case of Olivia Harper, law enforcement across the country saw firsthand the potential of genetic genealogy and advanced DNA analysis. It became a model for solving cold cases, proving that even decades-old mysteries could be resolved when science and diligence converged. Families with loved ones missing were offered renewed hope that time does not erase the truth, and that the smallest preserved evidence might one day speak loudly enough to expose the darkest secrets. After Gregory Ellis's arrest, the city of Syracuse struggled to reconcile the man they had trusted with the predator he had concealed. For the residents, the revelation was a jolt, the kind that makes people double-check who they let into their lives, who they smiled at in passing, who they shared their grief with over the years. Ellis had lived among them for more than a decade after Olivia Harper vanished, attending community events, volunteering at local food drives, and even mentoring teenagers at the YMCA. Now, every handshake, every smile he offered, carried a sinister weight. For Karen Harper, the years of waiting had been a mixture of hope, despair, and unwavering vigilance. She had kept Olivia's bedroom intact, as if preserving a time capsule might somehow keep her daughter close. Her diary, favorite books, and photographs remained untouched on shelves and nightstands. Each August, She would return to the streets of Syracuse, leaving flowers along Olivia's walking route, quietly speaking to strangers about her daughter, urging caution and awareness. Now with Ellis behind bars, she finally felt a mix of relief and exhaustion, the kind that comes from carrying a burden alone for so long. The investigation didn't stop with the arrest. Detectives combed through Ellis's life, uncovering the meticulous planning he had undertaken to avoid detection. His job as a delivery driver had given him intimate knowledge of the city's streets and routines. He had observed not only Olivia, but other teenagers in the neighborhood. A further forensic analysis revealed more connections. Fibers from Ellis's clothing matched those found on Olivia's abandoned backpack, confirming the likelihood that he had been in direct contact with the bag during the abduction. Additional items discovered during the search of his residence included a small journal in which he detailed observations of Olivia's routine, noting the time she left school, her preferred walking paths, and the precise moments she would pass certain landmarks. Investigators described this journal as both methodical and obsessive, a window into the mind of someone who had monitored a child for weeks before acting. Ellis's trial became a national story, drawing attention to the power of DNA evidence and genetic genealogy. Prosecutor Helena Martinez presented a narrative that combined forensic science, eyewitness accounts, and digital evidence. The jury learned how a single cigarette butt, preserved in a small evidence envelope since 2006, had ultimately cracked the case. That cigarette, discarded near the corner of Jefferson Street the night Olivia disappeared, had contained a trace of Ellis's DNA, a type trace too small to analyze with the tools available in 2006, but perfectly viable for modern sequencing techniques. Experts in the courtroom described the painstaking process. The DNA was isolated, amplified, and compared against commercial genealogy databases. Partial matches with distant relatives led investigators to Ellis, whose lifestyle and movements perfectly aligned with the forensic timeline. Every step of the process was corroborated, meticulously documented, and presented with clarity to the jury. The evidence was overwhelming, but the human element of the case resonated most deeply with those who knew Olivia. Friends and classmates testified about her warmth, her laughter, and the vibrancy she brought to every room. Teachers spoke of her dedication and intelligence, recounting her dreams of pursuing journalism and traveling the world. Family members shared the years of uncertainty, the quiet moments of grief, and the annual rituals that kept Olivia's memory alive. Their testimonies were not just about the past. They were an assertion that Olivia's life mattered, that she deserved justice even after so many years. When Ellis took the stand, he remained cold and unrepentant. His answers were measured, often evasive, but the evidence spoke louder than words. The jury saw the juxtaposition between the man's outward composure and the meticulous predatory behavior revealed through the investigation. It became clear that Ellis had relied on time and community trust as his shield. He had counted on the years to blur memories, on the ordinary routines of Syracuse to hide his crimes. But science, persistence, and vigilance had dismantled that shield. During the trial, Karen Harper attended every session. She carried with her a photograph of Olivia, taken at the local summer festival just months before she vanished. The image captured a girl with bright eyes and an open smile, the essence of youth and promise. Seeing Ellis in the courtroom, knowing he had observed and ultimately harmed her, was almost unbearable. Yet she remained steadfast, a symbol of resilience in the face of unimaginable loss. The community responded in ways that reflected both grief and relief. Local organizations held vigils and memorial services, allowing residents to collectively mourn the years lost and the betrayal of trust. Schools incorporated lessons on safety, awareness, and the impact of crime on communities. Police departments nationwide took note, recognizing that the methods used in Olivia Harper's case could be applied to other long unsolved mysteries. Her story became a case study in perseverance, forensic innovation, and the critical importance of evidence preservation. By late 2021, attention shifted to the sentencing phase. Judge Lawrence Whitman delivered a measured but firm ruling. Ellis was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The court citing the calculated nature of his actions, the duration over which he concealed his crime, and the profound impact on Olivia's family and the community. The sentence provided closure, though not solace. The Harper family had endured years of unanswered questions, and while the conviction answered many, the absence of Olivia remained an enduring pain. The case had lasting ramifications beyond Syracuse. It inspired law enforcement agencies to revisit cold cases with preserved evidence, emphasizing that DNA technology and genealogy could breathe life into investigations thought dormant. Detectives, prosecutors, and forensic scientists studied Olivia Harper's case as a blueprint for combining traditional investigation with cutting-edge science. Her story, though tragic, became a beacon for the potential of justice, no matter how much time had passed. Karen Harper continued her advocacy, speaking at conferences, writing articles, and supporting other families of missing children. She emphasized the importance of hope, the necessity of evidence preservation, and the power of modern science. Olivia's legacy grew through scholarships in her name, community awareness programs, and initiatives aimed at preventing abductions and supporting families affected by violent crimes. Even in the quiet moments, Karen remembered her daughter. She would sometimes walk the streets of Syracuse at dusk, imagining Olivia laughing, turning a corner, or pausing to watch the sun dip behind the rooftops. The city had changed, but the memory of that August evening in 2006 remained vivid, a reminder of what was lost, what was fought for, and what had finally been revealed. The conviction of Gregory Ellis did not erase the years of fear, uncertainty, and sorrow that had gripped Syracuse since Olivia Harper vanished. For Karen Harper, the mother who had kept her daughter's room untouched for 15 years, the relief of justice was tempered by the knowledge that her child's life had been stolen. But amidst the grief, a powerful sense of purpose emerged, a resolve to ensure Olivia's story would help others and that no evidence would ever be forgotten again. After Ellis's trial, law enforcement turned their attention to untapped potential in other cases. The Harper case became a model for the application of forensic genealogy. Police departments from New York City to Buffalo reviewed decades-old evidence, realizing that cigarette butts, hair samples, preserved clothing, or even discarded fibers could finally tell stories long buried. Detectives spoke of the Harper case as the turning point, a case where patience, science, and meticulous preservation of evidence converged to bring closure not only to one family, but to an entire community. Karen Harper, now a prominent advocate for families of missing children, began coordinating workshops with the New York State Police. She emphasized the importance of evidence preservation, highlighting the cigarette butt that had become the key to unlocking her daughter's fate. "Science is patient," she would tell the audiences. "Even decades later, truth will find its voice if we let it." Her advocacy extended to school programs, where students learned about personal safety, awareness, and the lasting impact of violent crime on communities. For the Harper family, the aftermath of Ellis's imprisonment was a mixture of healing and reflection. Karen's husband, Peter Harper, had struggled silently for years, the burden of unanswered questions leaving him physically and emotionally depleted. He now channeled his energy into supporting Karen's advocacy, volunteering with organizations that tracked missing children and connected families with resources. Family therapy sessions helped siblings navigate the emotional complexity of losing a sister, of celebrating her life while mourning her absence, and of adjusting to a world that finally acknowledged the truth. The community of Syracuse also faced the challenge of collective healing. Residents had unknowingly welcomed a predator into their lives, trusted him at school events, community fundraisers, and church functions. Understanding and forgiveness were difficult, but residents organized commemorative events for Olivia, transforming her disappearance from a private tragedy into a collective story of resilience. City officials dedicated a small memorial park in her honor, featuring a sculpture of a girl walking along a path lined with candles, a symbol of both remembrance and vigilance. Meanwhile, forensic experts documented every step of the Harper case, producing training materials and case studies that were disseminated nationally. DNA extracted from the cigarette butt, combined with genealogical research, became the centerpiece of lectures on cold case resolution. Laboratories upgraded storage protocols for decades-old evidence, understanding that what might seem insignificant today could prove decisive decades later. Olivia Harper's case reshaped investigative standards, making her story a catalyst for systemic change in law enforcement procedures. Ellis remained incarcerated, isolated from the community he once manipulated. In interviews granted only through written correspondence, he displayed no remorse, a stark contrast to the public condemnation and the painstaking accounts presented during trial. Prison psychologists noted his continued obsession with details of the investigation, suggesting that even decades later he could not reconcile with the consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, Karen Harper and her family focused on rebuilding their lives, finding solace in advocacy, memorial initiatives, and in the small victories of justice served. Olivia's peers, now adults, found meaning in the resolution of her case. School reunions, consciousness now celebrated the persistence of those who refused to let her story be forgotten. Art projects, scholarships, and youth mentorship programs were established in her name, perpetuating her curiosity, energy, and spirit in ways that transformed collective grief into action. In the years following Ellis's conviction, Syracuse law enforcement revisited 10 additional cold cases from the early 2000s. Investigators applied the same forensic genealogy methods that had unraveled the Harper case, uncovering links that had eluded traditional investigation. Multiple arrests and convictions followed, demonstrating the power of combining preserved evidence with modern technology. The Harper case became the benchmark, showing that no crime, however old, was beyond reach when science and determination converged. Karen Harper's message resonated widely. Justice may be delayed, but it is not denied. Every victim's story matters. Every piece of evidence counts, and every family's perseverance is integral to truth. Through interviews, public appearances, and written publications, she shared the lessons learned, that patience, meticulous preservation, and trust in modern science could overturn even the darkest chapters of human behavior. As Syracuse slowly healed, the city reflected on the fragility of trust and the resilience of a community that refused to forget. Olivia Harper's memory was no longer defined by her disappearance alone, but by the way her story inspired vigilance, justice, and collective responsibility. Streets once marked by fear became symbols of awareness, and neighborhoods transformed into spaces where safety and memory coexisted. On the 15th anniversary of Olivia's disappearance, Karen Harper led a commemorative walk along the route her daughter had taken that August evening in 2006. Participants carried lanterns, each representing a life touched by advocacy, each light a testimony to hope preserved. Families of missing children from across New York joined, sharing stories, creating networks of support, and fostering a culture of remembrance and action. Detectives and forensic experts who had worked on the case continued to share the Harper story as an example of perseverance. Law enforcement manuals now reference the case in chapters dedicated to evidence collection, the application of genealogical databases, and the ethics of cold case investigation. For young officers entering the field, Olivia Harper's story was a constant reminder. Every detail matters. Every scrap of evidence could be a key, and justice is never truly lost if it is pursued with diligence. Even 15 years later, the memory of Olivia Harper continues to ripple outward. Scholarships in her name have supported dozens of students pursuing journalism, photography, and forensic science. Her story is taught in classrooms, honored in community events, and serves as a beacon for families waiting for answers. Though her life was cut tragically short, the resolution of her case proves that truth has a way of surfacing, that persistence matters, and that science, paired with human determination, can illuminate even the darkest mysteries. For Karen Harper, the journey has been profound. Olivia's voice was silent for too long, she said during a memorial speech. But with every cell of evidence preserved, with every effort to remember, we made sure her story would not vanish. Justice arrived, and with it, hope for our family, for our community, and for every other family who refuses to give up. In the quiet moments of Syracuse evenings, residents now walk with a heightened awareness, a respect for the fragile nature of life, and an understanding that vigilance can protect, remembrance can heal, and science can deliver justice, no matter how many years have passed. The New York 2006 cold case of Olivia Harper stands as a testament to the power of human perseverance, the relentless march of technology, and the enduring promise that truth, when sought with unwavering dedication, will ultimately prevail. Olivia Harper may have been gone, but her story and the lessons it carries live on, continuing to guide, warn, and inspire every community willing to listen.